Here we are on the sofa. This is Sinna One.
Hi.
I'm Rec One, your host. Actually, at some point, somebody's going to have to interview me so that because they're probably going, I don't even know who that is, let alone who that is.
Yeah.
So at some point, maybe you or someone else will have to interview me. But anyway, we're here to talk to infamous Brighton street artist Sinna One.
Infamous, yeah. So not famous.
He's quite well known, famous. He's famously well known. I always like to think you're the most prolific of the Brighton street artists. You're always out on the street painting, aren't you?
I mean, thank you for saying that. I go through phases, I guess, but yeah, I like to keep a hand in. I feel like I was saying this. I was painting yesterday, which feels like the first time in ages.
So that big badger,
big, massive, sleepy badger. Yeah, really happy with it. It came out good.
It did look really solid,
and that's definitely like a thing I want to paint more of, is these kind of fluffy badgers. But yeah, I mean, ironically, I'm Year of the Dragon, and that's why I paint dragons a lot. There's a whole link in there with my mum's upbringing in North India and paraphernalia around the house. But yeah, it's Year of the Dragon this year, and I'm Year of the Dragon, and I was just like, this is my year. I'm going to paint loads of dragons, and I think I've painted 2 dragons, and I'm started to want to paint badgers now. So don't know why, but yeah,
nice. And that's on the side of the temporary.
It's on the side of the youth centre, yep. On Trafalgar Lane.
Trafalgar Lane. We've got a Trafalgar Lane in Brighton. You don't often paint on Trafalgar Lane, actually, but seeing as that's there now, I suppose that's why you're on there.
Yeah, that's it. And so the temporary youth centre's there. We've just had B-Fest, which is Brighton Youth Arts Festival. So loads of activities. I painted a big piece on the side of the building, which was actually by one of the young people that come to the youth centre. I think their handle's @Lord_Blubseel.
Oh, I saw that. That was higher up.
Yeah, so that normally B-Fest is Brighton Youth Arts Festival. It's been running 11 years, and normally, we always get a young person to basically they program it, they run it, and we also get a young person to design the flyer and have the branding for each year. So it's in its 11th year, and that was the person that did it this year. And in our old building, the walls were still big, but they were like kind of small enough that young people could have a go and do their design, and I would guide them through that. Whereas this year, because we had such a massive building, I had to set a scaffold, and I got them to paint like one wheel of the design, so it was like a roller skate.
Up. Yeah.
So that we can't get young people to climb the scaffold because it's a health and safety nightmare. So yeah, but that's the piece next to it. Yeah.
So you're quite locally known for doing that youth club work.
Yeah, I sort of fell into that in like 2009, so I've been doing it, 15 years now.
That's unpaid work, isn't it?
Some unpaid, some voluntary, but I've kind of forged my way into getting paid projects through that. So I think, once I started doing youth projects, I think it was Audio Active was the first one I ever did, and it just opened up loads of doors. So then I ended up working with young offenders, with the Young Offending Service of Brighton, and through that, then again, more charities or more people approached me and said, "Oh, you've done youth work, can you do this?" So the main bit of it I do is with Brighton Youth Centre.
You're mostly doing spray paint work, right?
A lot of it, yeah. Not always. I mean, one of the things with Audio Active with the Young Offenders Service and with Audio Active, they were running a project called Break for Change, and they said, "Would you come in as an artist on this project?" And I just, at the time, I didn't have any reference as what work you do, so I just took rolls of paper in and pens, loads of Posca pens, just said, let's create, and that's become a kind of staple thing I do when I do workshops like that.
Well, that's sort of what you're known for amongst a certain group of people. But for me, I know you for the Sinbot, Badger, Dragons, Ganesh. So you sort of got that Indian thing that you were saying. I mean, where did all this start? How did you get into all this?
I mean, I've drawn all my life, and as a kid, drawing lots of different things. But I love cartoons, so I think just drawing anything like doodling and kind of stuff that is influenced by kind of cartoons and maybe like video games from when I was a kid, comics and sci-fi and stuff like that. And so I would just constantly draw different things. And then I didn't get into spray painting until, not fully, until like the sort of early 2000s. And that was because a group of artists that I met in South London when I was living there. Before that, I kind of wanted to, I was fascinated by graph, like in the sort of mid-90s and well, from the late 80s when Subway art and spray can art came out. And we used to have the books in our library at school, and then they got stolen, like just vanished, you know, one of the most stolen books on the planet. And found out about 2 years later that a guy I became friends with, he had those books, he'd nicked them. And he had like really early copies of Graphitism and things like Vaughan Bodie comics and stuff like that. So at the time, in the 90s, just getting into kind of hip hop and dance music and seeing all the graphics and things that were on, you know, as part of all that, things like Suburban Bass Records and Dave Nodd's artwork and Stussy, you know, and just seeing all these things, I was like really amazed by it. And but never in Bournemouth, never found a way into kind of meeting anybody that painted, so never really kind of pursued that as such. So it wasn't until later on, when I was living in South London, I met a group of artists there and got into it, and that's when things like Sinna One was developed. And just, yeah, kind of learning how to use a spray can sort of cemented my style a little bit.
But you never got into graph. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, not into spray can art, not into actually going out on the street and painting big pieces. I tagged a bit in my hometown, which was around Bournemouth, so I'm not from Brighton. But
not from Brighton.
No, definitely not from Brighton. But from a seaside town, I think that's what drew me to Brighton is the sea air, but and the partying. No, but yeah, there were people. There was graph around. Like I think it was like Junk was someone who was painting. So I was talking to someone about this recently. Graph artist I met, tours, and he was saying like back there was like Junk and there was Boa, and I was aware of these things more through kind of rave culture. There's like rave tape, like Junk hardcore and stuff. It's amazing old school letter pieces and stuff. And yeah, this piece like Einstein that you used to be able to see from the train around the back of some warehouses. And I remember me and my mates just going off trying to find the spot so that you could take photographs from like art projects or whatever. Like, and
how old were you then?
Probably, yeah, sort of 15, 16, maybe, in fact, maybe just coming out of school into college. But yeah, we drew and sketched a lot and kind of copied styles. I've still got a sketch over there that my mate had done, and I think it's a copy of a artwork of 3D, Massive Attack from Spray Can Art.
Yeah.
And as I say, Vaughan Bodie as well. My mate had like Vaughan Bodie comics, and I'd seen the characters on trains in Subway art, but had no reference points. And it wasn't until I saw the comics and was just like, fucking hell, this is amazing, and then started to read those comics and just loved that style of the thick ink outlines and like, the really bright ink colours. But I guess, yeah, I was fascinated, but I didn't seek it out in respect of actually spray painting. So it's more just kind of copying the styles and taking that and then putting that into my own work.
Well, tell us about the Sinbot then. How did that come about?
Well, it's like when I was a kid and I used to draw cartoons. I think someone bought me like a how to draw comics or something. Maybe I think it was like a Disney book or something, and it just showed a wireframe of Mickey Mouse and just kind of like how characters go together with just like the proper basic shapes. And then later on, when I started developing Sinbot, it was because I was living in South London. I think I'd drawn a version of it, in different variations of it. I'd drawn in sketchbooks, but when I started to actually get into tagging or into like and drawing around East London, going to drawing events and things like that, I wanted something that was like quick to do, so it came out of simple shapes. So it's like circles for the eyes, the kind of oval head, egg-shaped head, and then like a pear body, and then the kind of quick legs, but like sort of lean a bit like the Bodie characters and the hip hop style character.
I'll insert you drawing one.
Okay, yeah.
Sinbot. eyebrows.
Egg-shaped head. Weird
Those
ear
his
things.
ears, yeah.
They're sort of like ear headphones. I guess they're like a bit like Mega Man or Warhammer, Space Marine. Warhammer
Oh wait, that
40K.
was the body, that little...
Yeah, little pear, weird pear thing. Bodhi style legs. But like with sort of Mega Man joints holding all the armour together.
Oh.
Sort of b-boy hands.
3 fingers.
3 fingers and a thumb, but you can't see them on the bit shadow. I suppose I should do some bloody lines for it now, isn't it? I've said about the lines.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it too much.
Yeah, it's a bit fat, isn't it, that pen?
Yeah. Ooh, that was nice.
So you started sketching them up, so you learned it, and then you took it to the street?
Yeah, like I was going to a lot of events in like Camden to start with. So there's like a group called Monorex who were, they set up a thing called Secret Wars. And this is before Secret Wars. They used to do a thing called Come Meet Rex. And that's kind of some of the guys I met around South London and Kingston. I got invited along to the thing in Camden, and it was a kind of live art, and also you got a chance to exhibit there and stuff. So I think when I was going to those and then seeing graph artists, musicians, illustrators, you know, and all different types of people, just kind of getting pissed and doodling and just having fun, I was like, well, I wanted to do something and have some identity in that. So I started doing Symbol, and also the more pissed you got, then when you start going out tagging, you would just like do stuff really quick because it was really simple shapes. And I didn't really have, although I'm into graph styles and into lettering and stuff like that, I didn't really have an identity in that. I didn't find it, I found the drawing stuff a bit more accessible. So that's kind of where Symbol grew out of. And also my mates at the time. So I didn't really have a graph name, but I'd always kind of written Sin because the letters, because I loved the letters like Stussy S and Suburban Bass S, like that sort of really typical graph S, and Scene as well. But then, and also I think I grew up with a sort of religious background, so I kind of thought, Sin, I like the letters,
The rebel.
And then and then when I met my mates from South London, they just were like, you can't write Sin because there's a guy, New York writer called Sin, that Scene used to put up, died quite young. Scene puts him up as a tribute, so you can't do Sin. And then they would just be like, well, why don't you write Sinna One? And they kind of named me. And ultimately as well, I didn't really have a name for the robot, but they just used to be like, oh, he's done a Sinbot. So, it was kind of, these things were just inserted in at the time. And
It's just all like interwoven with rave culture, was it? Was that happening then?
Once I kind of left home, went to uni, and then I moved to South London, and I was going out, I was following the party quite a lot. I was actually in uni in High Wycombe, but it's kind of out of northwest London. And you could get on the train quite quickly. So I'd go out raving quite a lot, that was in the late 90s, and Fabric opened in 99. So I started to get really into jungle, drum and bass. So rave culture has a part in it, but more just because I love going raving, really. And then I think some of the things that I draw and just kind of, the way I've been driven to draw stuff is maybe driven by music.
Festivals?
Lots of festivals, yeah.
I always see you as quite a sort of festival type.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Sinbot is kind of floppy, I always think it's something to do with your kind of loose, easygoing party nature.
Yeah, there's that. I think, like I say, the aesthetic of it is born out of more the kind of styles of old school hip hop, like characters and that kind of, I suppose there's like the floppy bucket hats and kind of like flowing, like
it's like
those lines.
Rocksteady Crew B-boy.
That's definitely
had them kind of sort of flares that went down into the ground.
It.
Sort of thing.
I mean, that again, like just seeing the styles of things in the early 90s, and then like remember getting into psychedelics for a bit and just kind of like having this trip of just like no reference point in the room, but just out the corner of my eye, just this big old school b-boy character just with a bucket hat and big flare jeans just being in there with the kind of fingers like that. But, yeah, man, like, I really like that kind of dead down effect on me. It's just I love that aesthetic. So yeah, that crosses over into a lot of stuff that I've done, even with like doing now, kind of badgers or dragons or whatever. There's something of that style that I've put into those. So, yeah.
There's always some sort of, there's the floppiness, but there's always some kind of joke or some sort of uplift in your street work.
Yeah, I kind of like, I guess, dad jokes or cheese, like puns and things like that. I haven't done it for a while, but I'm starting to bring that back. And like when I first moved to Brighton, I got a chance to, I met Snub and like basically it was a crew called Graphic Warfare, so people like Mish and Foundry and loads of other artists, and basically we'd go painting together. There were some good spots you can go, you knew you wouldn't kind of get any hassle painting, like there was an old abattoir, Tana, I think I painted Tana before I moved here, but it was knowing it was there was great, and then Black Rock as well, so you can kind of go and safely paint and just do these characters. But then there's like Cassette Lord was painting boxes around the town, around the city, and when I started doing like the youth project stuff, I basically got a link with being able to paint these boxes. And Cassette Lord was doing cassettes that, he started that project because it fits really well on that space. But I thought, well, great. I was actually looking for sort of wall spaces to do with the young people, but was told by someone from City Clean, you can paint these boxes, and then just kind of gave me a bit of free reign, but didn't monitor it. So I just kind of went out and I thought, well, I want to put my own characters up. And a lot of the time when I was working with the kids, they were like, I'd be like, you can put anything on these boxes. But I think sometimes that was just a bit too much. So then I'd be like, okay, well, now I'm going to show you how to do a panda or paint a badger or whatever. And so I would sketch out and then get them to fill it in and whatever. So it just became this thing where there'd be like different boxes all over the city. And that was great because it was just, there was so many of them. And so, I started to do little kind of puns on those really. And that, I think, drove I guess that was in my artwork already, but I think having a platform and then trying to come up with different ones over time was kind of the impetus on that.
I quite like the Yeti still. That's been there since 2018.
The Yeti. But then again, that's appeared in different forms. And there was a pub like the Blind Tiger, which used to be Hector's house, and I had a link with those guys, so I painted their wall a few times. And the Yeti, the best one I've done of that was the side of the pub there, and that was just a big Yeti, and with a little tiny cup of tea saying Yeti, which now it's coming up to Christmas, I'm going to probably bring that back into some cards and stuff.
Well, it's snowy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's mountains and snow, but it's I think it's just a nice, it's a nice, simple, silly image, which I guess that sums me up a little bit.
You developed that curly dragon, didn't you?
Curly dragon, yeah.
That's not Indian based. It's not like related to that.
No, well, my mum grew up in Norfolk. She was adopted in Essex when she was like 2, and was taken to North India, so raised by missionaries, who my grandparents had set up an orphanage in North India, like in the foothills of the Himalayas. So there was a lot of Tibetan influence, Tibetans in exile who had settled in North India. Because of that, my mum moved back when she was 19, met my dad, and so growing up in the house, we had lots of Tibetan paraphernalia, like dragons, dragon rugs, things like that. So
Yeti Tibetan?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I never really kind of made that. I only did the Yeti just to say Yeti, basically. but it is.
And the dragon, just a satisfying doodle?
Well, as I said, like before, so I just love the fact I'm not into like anything too cosmic, and I don't follow horoscopes but the Chinese horoscope is, I was born year 76, the year of the dragon. So, and I just really like that because it's a good sign. But then you know, for me, it's got that lead in with the paraphernalia around the house when I was a kid. And then looking into it more, it's just, you know, it's an auspicious soul. Dragons are auspicious in Eastern mythologies. And just, yeah, I just love a lot of different factors about what they're about. They sort of harness creativity or a symbol of creativity. So yeah, there's all that in there as well.
There's that really nice one that's still there that you did up a ladder on Vox's birthday.
Oh yeah,
on Trafalgar Lane.
Yeah,
that's still there. It's
got.
Nice.
I mean, it's high up, so it doesn't get touched. There's one in the Travis Perkins car park, but that's really ratty now. That's probably one of the better ones I've done as well.
On my street art tour, we see the first thing we see of yours. Well, that is more your style. Is the Ganesh by Middle Street School, and I say to people, look at that. He's got his hand or something like that, and there are these little kind of little flourishes you do within the infill that aren't necessarily part of the detail, but they're just sort of part of your kind of your kind of look. You know what? That's something you seem to do a lot, and that's one way that I say to people, this is how we're going to identify if we see something by him again. You know?
Yeah.
Why is that? What are these things?
That really comes from Simbot. I mean, I think when I've doodled stuff, there's this kind of natural way that I don't know, it just comes out of me. It's a natural doodle shape. But when I first did Simbot, and actually that comes from tagging it, because going like round and then just quickly adding the details in and then wanting to kind of give that extra dimension. So like the lines throughout Simbot are actually representing light and shade, even though they might not be shaded in. It's more representing highlights. So the circles in the, so I think people sometimes think, the circles in the eyes are actually like weird eyeballs or something, but in my head it's like, oh no, that line there is like where the light's hitting that side. And also just kind of text it up a bit, you know. When I was about 15, 16, my mate introduced me to like manga and anime, and I just loved all the mecha stuff like Macross, and just I like Japanese kind of robot design. You get all these like little kind of, or anything technical, you know, kind of engineering. You've got like little grates and things like that.
Yeah, so like little panel sort of sections and stuff.
But like without doing something that's that detailed, it's more about just kind of an accent. So drawing lines through something. And I was looking at a photo the other day of one of the bigger Simbots I did in Berlin in 2015 next to the Berghain. And just rocked up there in the day, really nice big walls, concrete slabs. And I just went over the top with all the little doodle lines in it. So he looks really stripy, but I really love it because there's like loads going on in there, even though it's just simple lines, you know. So that, things like the Ganesh, I really like doing that. But then like with the badger that I painted yesterday, I did a little kind of, it's like a thought coming out of him. And it's in the original sketch, but it's just like this sort of swoopy line, and then it fades off at the top. But it's, I nearly, at the end of the day, because I did look at where his foot's sticking out and he's got a little pad on his foot, and I nearly did a little one in there, and I resisted the urge to do it.
Yeah, because it's quite clean and open.
Yeah, so that's, I know, I forget that, you know.
Yeah, but that little curly bit you were talking about, that's similar. Do you sometimes do a flame coming out of the Sinbot's hand?
Yeah, well, it's a heart normally. Yeah, that's the one I did in Berlin, and I think that was the first time I did it, actually, the one in Berlin, and that was the best one I've done of those. It was just really flowed really beautifully, and then because I did a heart, I did Berlin, and then I lit it up in neon, so then it was just nice little spots of neon throughout the piece. But yeah, I mean the devil tag, which is I've been drawing since I was sort of 16, 17. That's when I first was like, okay, I'm going to write Sin without writing. But yeah, but a bit of tagging. But like it was this, there'd been a rave flyer that was like, I think it was about drugs, but it was like had this kind of flattened, smarty shape, kind of with wonky eyes, with like a jaggedy mouth. And actually, I wrote manic with a K first, and it was all really shit stuff. But like, and I just thought, oh yeah, you know, when I did Sin, I was like, that disc is gonna be actually have devil horns and a little tail coming off of it.
I was wondering whether we should mention that,
Yeah.
because that seems to be something that you sneak around doing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't so much anymore, but yeah, it's but yeah, then that again, it's like that just really nice shape to go really quick horns. I mean, it's quite ugly.
There's no formalised version of that, really, is there? It just exists on that quick gestural.
Yeah, but I love. Yeah, I mean, like anything when you're kind of being naughty and tagging it, it's just like how it flows, and then and that's that swirly thing again. Doing the tail is just quite nice how it sort of whips up, and then yeah, I end up adding. I don't know. I think it's just knowing when to stop on something, and I guess I don't. Maybe that's the thing with the lines in the robot, and then the devil. It's like doing the horns, and
yeah.
But there's adding little bits of line in. So yeah.
Mm. Well, I remember. Sure, I met you. I was thinking about the first time I met you. Actually, I think it was in the King and Queen, wasn't it? There was a paint jam.
Shit, yeah, okay.
I think Snob was there.
Yeah. So that was, was it called Psycho Circus or something like that? And it was, so it was a guy who was doing like a fundraiser, like building schools in Africa or something. But, and yeah, because like a mate of mine, when I met him years later, he had loads of my artwork and he bought it from that event because he knew the guy that put it on. But yeah, so there was like Ashab was there. It was all the guys like from who we like. They had Flood the Valley at the time, but I ended up later on setting up Art Schism Gallery with them. And so it was those guys, Snub, and we'd given in canvases to auction. In fact, I bought your canvas on the auction. I've got it up here. I'll grab it in a sec.
Okay.
It's your tag up there.
Oh, yeah.
So I think this is a bit rich. But yeah, I got that for about £7. but yeah, so I forgot about that. And that's, there we go. I mean, how can I forget? Because that's the bloody canvas from it. But it's, I mean, it was a very messy day.
But then we more properly sort of started hanging out on the first version of the Albert mural, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose as well going to Inked a lot. So Inked was within the first year.
Okay, Inked Gallery, that was a sort of offshoot of Art Republic at the time.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, because I've found a flyer as well. So there's this event, Secret Wars. This is the lean off camera. This was like the one when I first moved to Brighton in the first year. There's like guys Monorex I knew in London. And we did it versus Graphic Warfare, which was Snub's crew. So the London Monorex was Tech One, Alpha Male, Sinna One, and Shri. I don't know if it's Tech One, but it was definitely Ink Fetish. And then you had Snub, De Facto, Orco, and Foundry as part of Brighton crew. And that was that was at Ricky Tix, or now is Dead Wax. But that was me and Shri had been to what we knew each other from London and had moved down here, and so I connected with her when I moved here, and then we said Secret was such a great event in East London, we need to put it on down here, so we did it and we did it as a free event. And I went, when it says on there Art Republic, it's one of the sponsors, and I said to went into Art Republic, and Lawrence was just like, what is this? I don't care, you haven't got enough information, and both me and Shrew were a bit like, oh fuck, we didn't really have ourselves ready. But Dan and Lindsay, Dan worked there at the time, and obviously Lindsay's Lawrence's daughter, and they kind of went, it sounds quite interesting what you're doing. Had a separate meeting with them, and then that was when they had got the building, so they hadn't even opened up yet for Inked.
Oh, Inked, yeah.
And went and had a look at it. But yeah, so they did end up, Art Republic sponsored the event because we got prizes, and Tuaca got involved, but that was the kind of last dealers I had with Secret Wars, unfortunately, because problems with a fallout over Tuaca, too much Tuaca drunk or whatever. But anyway, but yeah, so that was backtrack. Yeah, so like, there's another reason that I kind of hung out with you a bit would be like Inked events, art gallery events. So we'd kind of chat then, and then then the Albert was. Well, that was in 2006, the launch of Inked, and then so the Albert was like 2013, so that was a lot later.
Right, yeah.
That's. I mean, when did Drawing Club start as well?
That's about 10 years or more ago. More than 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
It was around the same time we did the Albert, I think.
Yeah. So I think we kind of a mutual love for beer and Dark Star and probably Evening Star.
Yeah, the Evening Star.
We'd hang out, and then and then the Albert really, that was a wicked project. And actually, taught me shitloads. Like, people would ask me yesterday, how did you scale up onto that wall? And I'm going, oh, well, Rec taught me that you get the picture and you do that with your eye and you do that, and but people go, oh, don't you grid it out? I'm like, no.
People want a grid on the wall.
Yeah, that like blows people's mind. I'm like, well, it's. I guess I kind of was doing that with characters anyway, because in my mind it's like, just got to get it up, and then if you fuck it up, you just fix it as you go. But yeah, for doing the portraiture stuff, that was like really mind blowing.
So we're supposed to be maybe painting it again next year, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because it's flaking off again.
Yeah.
Some of the colours have faded.
Yeah.
And there are plenty more dead rocks.
Plenty more dead. I mean, I don't know how we're going to fit them all on, but yeah, we can.
Yeah, but I stupidly painted Glenn Campbell. I did his face pretty much as tall as me. It's not at all necessary.
Yeah, a bit more mapping out then.
So I reckon
there's probably people that need to come off there.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's up to Chris, really.
Yeah, totally.
But I think the smallest one I did was Rory Gallagher, and he's just a bit too small.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to do them like getting on for 2 feet.
I need to practice again, because we'd do that, and it would take me like 2 days to do George Harrison or something, and you'd be like, "Oh, I've done 2 hours. I'm just gonna." Well, also, it was unbearable heat, and you're like, "We're not working in a day." I was quite happy to kind of punish myself, because I was like, "I need to get this done," and I've never done portraits before, but yeah, I was really happy with that, and I like the way that we worked together on it, because I mean, you're a master, and you taught me, but at the same time, it's like, people from across the road, offices would come out and say, oh, if you want to come and take a look at it from over there, but then they'd be like, oh, what's Kurt Cobain's got the mumps and shit like that. And you're like, oh fuck. Well, I'm like, this kind of fixes a bit. So there was a bit of back and forth.
Well, we've got that to look forward to.
Yeah.
Scaling them down, cramming more in.
We should do another the way that, because that took ages to get Chris to agree on it, the landlord of the Albert. And yeah, it was, but then it wasn't until we actually just went in one day, we had a beer and said, let's do some loose sketches. Once we went like that, and he just went, fuck yeah, let's do it, let's make it happen. Because there was always like, oh, not enough money this year, and we'll wait until after the Great Escape or whatever. And it was just like, we went, well, it could look like this. And he was like, yeah, wicked. So that was spot on. Definitely.
You do work on quite a bit of merchandise type stuff, don't you? You've got a website, for instance.
Yeah.
So you've always been quite active in that direction, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, that stuff takes a lot of extra maintaining, and maybe I'm not on it as much as I could be, but I try and keep a hand in. Coming up to Christmas, and I always have a studio over by the Robin Hood, the lady that runs that Bear Flocking Gallery, or Gallery Locking. It's like a double garage, and it's really good for kind of show, that always has different art shows going on, and it's really good for different styles of installation, whatever. But I always get given it around Christmas time, and I do Sinner's Grotto. And then this year will be Sinner's Grotto 5. Last year, I didn't do loads of it last year. It's really difficult, because even though it's covered and it's in a garage, and Beth does amazing work there to maintain the space and all that, it can get a bit cold and damp at Christmas time. But last year I was like, I'm doing more workshops out of it, and this year I'm going to do some workshops leading up, which are going to be kind of make a Christmas gift sort of thing, or there will be some spray paint workshops, and then I'll probably use some of that time in December to develop some new work. So there'll be pieces on the wall that you can come and have a look at. So I'm going to kind of use it as an opportunity to have workshops in the lead up to Christmas, and some live work and some new pieces that will be like a new body of work. And then I'm just trying to firm up some stuff for a Christmas market at the moment, which is all a bit last minute, but there'll be some Christmas stuff. So So yeah, I do bits of merch, stickers, tote bags, paintings. I've got a website, sinnaone.shop. You can go on there, you can check that out. And I do have a website, sinnaone.com, which has just got a lot of old pieces on it, and it explains a bit about kind of why I'm called Sinna, and it's more of a place to stop in and just check out what stuff I've done in the past. But my Instagram's probably more updated. It's easier to manage. So yeah.
All right, cool. I think we've delved into the depths of the Sinna One.
Yeah,
we found out some things we didn't know about him.
Nice, excellent. Thank you very much. Cheers for coming to speak to me and inviting me along.
Well, he's the first one because I've known you a long time. Thought it'd be easier to do it with Sinna One, just because we're all right, and he won't mind if I have to do it 5 times because I haven't sussed out the equipment yet.
Yes, wicked.
Cheers,
nice one.